Hello and welcome to Benno and Hamflett in Your House, a podcast reviewing WWE's iconic New Generation B shows in order from the bust back to the boot. I'm Michael Hamflett.
And I'm Benno. I'm Michael. Thank God it's 1997 is all I've got to say this week on this housekeeping. As we've got a fun old show today. A nice comparison, contrast, plenty of interesting things to get into between that. I feel like these housekeepings are they're turning into literally the shoot 1997. You know, later in this year, pay-per-views are about to go from 2 hours to 3 hours. Raw is about to go from obviously 1 hour to 2 hours, as we'll talk about today. And Benno and Hamflett and the housekeepings have gone from 40 minutes to 3 hours because all of the fucking things happen every time between these pay-per-views, and that's very much the world we're in 1997. And to be honest, after the day, I'm quite thankful for it.
Yeah, it's it feels like it's yet another one of those situations since we've been recording this podcast that's a shock to nobody apart from me and you. Like we'll start within Your House 1 and maybe like a couple of TV angles for a neat and tidy 1 hour 50-minute show, and we think, it'll just be this way forever. When even we ourselves know that 1996 is around the corner, 1997 is around the corner, and all of a sudden, like we've decided to document. We've gone from this sort of the sublime of the 1 hour 50-minute, like a little cheeky Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart, like 4 3/4 star match on a pay-per-view that otherwise is just a bit of fun, to like the single most significant period in North American wrestling history. And it does totally feel overnight, doesn't it? You know how I said when we first started that, like, I always feel like there are times when like WWE in particular looks like a year. So sometimes it's not like January 1st where say 1994 becomes 1995. There's just too many hallmarks from the year prior or whatever. I said this when we did the Jim Ross heel turn. 1997 pretty much just started there. We have gone just so into this era, you know, like you mentioned about Shawn Michaels with his stubble and his glasses at its time, looking nothing like the guy that lost the title at the Survivor Series. We're into March, April, and again, Shawn and your Bret and your Steve and the like, and the Undertaker, they've all lived about 4 lives in 4 months, haven't they? This is 100 miles an hour as a product in a way that we've never ever seen before in this coverage.
Everybody's just got grey in it, hasn't it? Like we keep saying, it is literally the teenage years, and it's slipped in. It's like when you were like, I don't know if you were the same as you when you were 12. Still can't quite grow a beard now, but you know, I remember like that little teenage mustache starting to sneak in like in like when I was about 12. I think that's WWF's equivalent of like the bumper start and the black and white one, the World Wrestling Federation one. It felt very 1997, but it started in 1996. Same with Steve Austin, you know, awkward facial hair, you know, weird goatee that's not quite the finished Stone Cold Steve Austin goatee, kind of growing out through 1996. That's him about to turn 13, and then 1997. It's pure fucking chaos and puberty, isn't it? And it's you know, instead of you going out on your school dinners and playing a little game of five-a-side, all of a sudden everybody's going out with the girls and going to the local park. There's the cider on the go. There's I don't know, maybe that was just in Bootle where I'm from, but it was a very much different world to the 6 months before, and that feels like the Fed. Not to put a cider in Shawn Michaels' hands, but feels like it fits.
Well, yeah, again, I feel like a lot of this podcast has been our agenda against the people that didn't stick with it during our school years. Like, this feels like a revenge mission from me and you for, like, asking, where were you, to other people on the playground by the time they returned in 1998. This Fed reminds of that specific period you've talked about. It's weird when you're that age. I don't know, you know, our audience, I feel like, are a lot similar age to us, and we're now getting to the point where it was over half our life ago. But you know, for those, if we do have any younger listeners around that are a bit closer to this period of your life, it's a bit strange, isn't it? Because, you know, like some of your mates do sort of get into that, like whether it's like wanting to go and like go out with girls or go and drink in the park, it sort of happens at a different rate. So you can't quite, I remember thinking like, so we don't play like Mega Drive anymore or something like that. I'm kind of scared. I'm kind of scared of drinking in the park, actually, if I'm honest. I don't really want to try a cigarette. I'd quite like to watch the Fed as normal. And if you come with me, I think you'll find that you might like it as well. And they just weren't buying it. They weren't. I was like, do you know that like Bret Hart's starting to swear? Like it could be pretty good, lads. But I don't think my sales pitch was really working at the time.
You know what it is? It's like, it's being, because I'm saying this like, oh yeah, I was one of the cool kids. I wasn't. I wasn't hanging around with Shawn Michaels drinking White Lightning. I was watching wrestling. I was watching this wrestling. That's exactly what I was doing during this period, living vicariously through Shawn Michaels and my favorite wrestlers. But it's proper like that though, when you're in that break between like about to turn a teenager. Like you'd be like in like, did you have PE? In PE we had like the boys and the girls groups, and like in the boys groups, like there's some of us who were still like fully formed children, which I feel like is like the WWF undercard that's still there in 1997, but like feels very 1996. And then there was like just one bloke who's like, you're all getting changed ready for a game of footy, and it's just like he looks like your dad, and he's got a swinging set of bollocks and like pubes coming out of like every part of his body. It's like, Jesus Christ, like I thought we were kids. He's a fucking grown man. What's he doing in here? And like you have that weird mix. Maybe it was just my school. I don't know. Maybe we all saw too much of each other. I don't know, but yeah, that's what it feels like for me. That's the memory that's brought back. Sorry.
No, you're bang right. I'm not going to dox a mate of mine, but whenever we meet for a pint, like once in a blue moon, we're all dads now. But like we'll have a pint, like old school friends all get together, and there's one lad, and he knows who he is. And if he's watching this podcast, he knows who he is. But like we all still rip the piss out of him for a specific PE lesson where he ran completely Billy Bollico through the changing room, going like, "Oh, Darren's got me towel. Darren's got me towel." He's like, "No, he fucking doesn't. You want to show us because you know you're in front." That's exactly what's going on here. That's such a core memory that was burned into all of us, unfortunately, just because, as you say, like we're all kicking around like Bart Gunn and he's Stone Cold Steve Austin. And it's like, how's this happen? What's this?
See, the joke's on him though, mate. Bart Gunn can still get on the bus on the kids' prices. Those lads, like the bus drivers weren't buying it at that point. Now you're a fucking sixth form, you. There's no way you're 13 years old. Like that, he was there. That's the problem when you Stone Cold Steve Austin at the school. But fuck that again. I think we lived the same life here. I think, yeah, it was very much the same in Liverpool.
Oh, man. I remember as well. It's a little bit after this, obviously, but we're going to talk today about the historic, I guess, official babyface turn of Stone Cold Steve Austin. I remember getting the first merchandise catalog this summer that had the Austin 316 shirt available, and I was allowed. It came through the post, and I was allowed to get it. And I remember wearing it for like the first. I want to say it came maybe October, November '97. Like, and I remember like. It would have been before Christmas anyway, the non-uniform day before Christmas. And I remember wearing it to school for the non-uniform day and just being like desperate. And nothing happened.
For anyone to know what it is.
For a teacher to boot off and say that it was like blasphemous, like Jeff Jarrett had said on Raw, or like, or anyone to know what the frig it even was. And it wasn't, it was just a black shirt that had some words on, But I was that was my little moment of thinking, I'll show them today. Like in my head, I'm walking into school and glass is smashing behind me everywhere I walk, but nobody gave a shit. It was just like, oh well. Back to the ranch.
I wanted that same experience. It won't shock you to know that I was leafing through WCW magazine and seeing the NWO t-shirts and trying to get me my dad to order me one. They never would. To be honest, if I'd gotten it, I would have cut the sleeves off like Scott Hall and worn it like a tea towel, like he did. That was my grand idea. I would have been the height of fashion in my school. I probably would have been beaten up if we're all honest, but I still would have tried to pull it off like you. But that's totally true. Like that's what would happen. People would just went, I don't know, what's a new world order? What even is it at this point? Flash forward fucking 18 months, everyone's doing crotch chops at the teachers, aren't they? And doing fingers to the teachers and all of that stuff. Like, unfair, mate, unfair.
A different time, Benno. Like, I will say, so, we'll talk briefly, because we're going to recap, as we always do, on these housekeepings, the period from Final Four through to Revenge of the Taker, and it does factor in WrestleMania 13, but there was an event that took place just before Final Four, and it was Raw moving to 2 hours. There was a 2-hour special at the start of February called the Royal Rumble Raw, which is just the cheekiest bit of business from the Fed. They just promised to play clips of the Rumble. Yeah, they'll play clips of the Rumble. Please don't watch Nitro. Please don't watch Nitro. We'll show you some clips or whatever. And then after that switch, it all got a bit weird for a while. So you had Thursday, Raw Thursday, which of course fed us into Final Four, where Sean loses his smile. So it's 2 hours, but it's on a Thursday. That's not quite right. We then move to the night after Final Four, which of course is Steve Austin costing Bret Hart the belt. Having obviously only won it at Final Four. They try, this is cute from the Fed, with it being that start time, they try to get the match in the ring 3 times, and Austin attacks them every time. So you're always basically kept on the hook. Please don't turn over. Please don't turn over. The title match is coming. The title match is coming. And Austin screws Bret on that edition of Raw. But then the February the 27th episode was the ECW invasion in the Manhattan Center, because half of the crew was over in Germany for the European title tournament. So that still doesn't feel like a proper Raw. You know, you've got Sabu falling off the old letters, and ECW have 3 matches on the show, I think it is. And then March the 3rd itself, that's the European title tournament itself. Bulldog beats Owen in an incredibly credible main event, and then otherwise it's yet another TV taping that looks like absolute shit, because apparently WWE just can't get the staff if they leave America. More on that shortly before we hit Revenge of the Taker. But yeah, like that's to say, basically, we're kind of at long last on a proper road to WrestleMania. The WWF title's been a hot potato. Raw's been thrown for a loop. We've introduced a new title into the mid card, but at long last, after all of the injuries and after all these sort of changes and upheaval, we seem to be set for WrestleMania, sorry, and it's going to be The Undertaker challenging Sid for the world title, and Steve Austin versus Bret Hart in a submission match. A little bit more on that later on. But even then, you're not allowed to get hyped for WrestleMania, not yet, because on March the 10th, Benno, a pivotal moment, I think, in my life, certainly, Raw becomes Raw is War. I haven't done a full review of the episode, though I kind of wish I had. But what I want to talk about is not the theme of the first episode, because that was actually, trivia fans will know, of course, that was Marilyn Manson's Beautiful People for the first 2 episodes before it became the more familiar Thorn in Your Eye Raw theme that we all know. But I need to talk about and review the credits to Monday Night Raw, because I say this pure of heart, tapping my forearm as hard as I possibly can. Benno, I put it to you that the Raw is War credits from 1997, there is no match, there is no promo, there is no wrestler, there is no star, there is no pay-per-view, there is no anything. This credit sequence is the best thing the World Wrestling Federation has done and will ever do. It is incredible.
It feels like that's where all the money went, because that's the thing that keeps popping into my head when we're doing this, and we're going, so they're going to 2 hours now. You can tell they're probably thinking, fuck, this is 1997, we're going to run out of tape, we're going to run out of physical tape, we can't afford to go to the shop and buy any more, we can't buy this stuff in any more bulk, we need to be careful here, lads. And it's the combination of that and this, because they're throwing in, aren't they? It's all the pyrotechnics, and obviously the long shots that I think you pointed out to me, the reusing the in the DX music video when they eventually get there, so they do get the money's worth there out of the tape footage here all the way. But it does, it feels like it's like a mini movie, it's like a mini action movie, pretty much taking place. We were loving Raw on the Roof, we were loving all of that stuff, but this was another level of it. And I do remember when it first went on, and it was also an indication of who are the guys that they're going to be getting behind going forward, who are the main guys, and it's Bret, it's Steve, it's Sid, Ahmed's in there, that always caught my eye. I always hated it, 6 months later when he's not even on the scene at all, and it's oh man, Ahmed should be in this mix. Ahmed should be in there with Austin, and should be vying for that top spot. But it really is it's another one of those stamps of, we understand we need to move on, we don't fully understand how we're going to move on or what we're going to leave behind in the past, but there's at least an inkling of, these are the guys we should be leaning into, and this is the presentation we should be leading into as well, because this wouldn't belong, would it, in Shawn Michaels WWF in 1996? No. If anything, it's kind of switched, hasn't it? We've gone from it's Shawn Michaels' company in 1996 and all the positives and negatives that come from that, to the more ensemble role that obviously it becomes going forwards. Obviously it becomes the Austin show eventually, but it's a marked switch to how they would have presented anything even a year before this.
It is. I mean, you must feel great if you're Steve Austin, knowing how much focus has been placed upon you as those.
This is the real elevation, isn't it? This is the real move up.
Oh yeah,
it's this more than
100%. Imagine they go to the trouble of making you the central figure. I mean, I'll briefly describe it. I feel like everyone listening can already visualize these credits in their head, but if you've never somehow seen these credits, for God's sake, stop what you're doing.
I'll just stop behind you while you're talking.
This really genuinely gorgeous tracking shot comes down from on high of this warehouse that looks completely abandoned. There's broken glass, there's security dogs running wild through this warehouse area. It's all pitch black. It just looks like a place you don't want to be. Pyro explodes and some people run for their lives, but Steve Austin just literally walks through the fire. He's not scared of anything. You're seeing various shots of all the wrestlers being broadcast on these walls. Ahmed Johnson's got his 2x4 with him. He kicks out at a wild dog as it barks towards him. There's like those bins on fire that you see people huddle around to keep warm. They're just on fire everywhere. And then Ahmed and Austin simultaneously make it into the ring where yet more pyro goes off that sets the ropes on fire. And now we get an aerial shot of the ring with the ropes on fire, with Bret brawling with Shawn, Sid brawling with Taker, Austin brawling with Ahmed, as we hear and see the words war flash up on the screen. There's a brand new Raw is War logo. There's a fucking Titantron, which again, I cannot sort of like express how wild a visual the Titantron was the first time you saw it. It's live on the USA Network, which was always the thing that Nitro could hold above WWE's head, that like, they can spoil the results, they can say they're on the tape, whatever. Like, the power is so back. I could barely contain myself watching it even now, all these years later. I can't think of a time in Fed history where it's like you say about like, they're not quite knowing what they have to change, but they know they have to make changes. But I can't think of many where it is so like ballsy and so big and like they're like, nobody can compare Raw from 2 weeks ago to this instantly. It is an instant shift. Like, Sid comes out to cut the first promo and Vince is like trying to recap what's on the show later on that night in a way that doesn't feel real anymore, because the announcers don't need to do that when somebody's coming out to do the show opening. But the show opening promo is quite a new phenomenon. So Vince is well, and later on a Raw, we've got so-and-so. You don't need to shut up. Like, the game has changed. Like, even then, they're still having to adjust. The change is so massive that all of a sudden, anything trapped in the past looks like it's out of time.
Massively. And low bit, mean not to mention it, but like WCW went through the same thing. Like, that WCW tried to, to break the format of wrestling, and even down to like the intro, like, it is a bit of a knockoff of the Nitro one, like whereas the Nitro one's just a street, isn't it, with cars exploding and stuff like that, and big tellies. And the problem with Nitro is it being WCW, and it's the most WCW thing ever. 3 years later, Vader's still in it. You know what I mean? It's just it's all this footage. It's yellow and red Hulk Hogan. You know, it's like, come on, lads,
it's Hogan tearing the shirt, isn't it?
Yeah, the NWO have been a thing for 3 years. They're not even. There's a wolf pack now. Come on, lads, sort it out. I mean, obviously, WWF, Ahmed and Sid and that would kind of stay in it, but they'd kind of cut them a bit more, wouldn't they? And it would focus even more on Steve than obviously it does here with that tracking shot that follows him out as well. But same kind of thought process, isn't it? It's just like, nothing's working. And if anything, I think they probably have got and that's one of the, it's not a thing to be ashamed of, but they've got their eye on Nitro, and they've got their eye on, well, what's working? Anti-authority, anti-heroes. There could be something in that, a grittier, in moments, more adult presentation. Oh, that's the part of it that's working. Is this other stuff that's not working for WCW, Glacier and the other like undercard stuff? But again, maybe we can take influence from that, and it's taken some of those best bits too and putting that WWE sheen on it as well. It's just, again, it's another of those things you just massively associate with 1997 and going forward.
And they run a main event on the show of Sid and The Undertaker versus Mankind and Vader. And there's two purposes to this. Number one, it sets up Mankind and Vader as obviously pallbearers wrestlers, but now as a tag team. Because, I mean, Benno, you and I both know the Bulldog and Owen need some heels to work with at WrestleMania. God forbid they get any baby faces. So that kind of establishes them as an organized enough unit to get a tag title shot. But also, like, you're seeing instantly the influence more so of Vince Russo, of the likes of what the opponents in the title match are teaming up together. Like, can they coexist is a question that is being asked for the first time, rather than becoming this chewed up and spat out cliche. But there's method to his madness at this point. Bret the Hitman Hart, it's confirmed, gets one last title shot. It's booked for the March 17th edition of Raw. So again, they're trying to drop hooks for the following week's show. Stop tuning into Nitro. Please stay tuned into Raw. He's going to get it in a steel cage. And they don't confirm it on the night. But even on commentary, Vince McMahon is sort of questioning out loud, how's he got that title shot, I wonder, from Gorilla Monsoon? And Lawler's saying, he probably went and whined and cried and begged for it. And then Bret comes out later on in the show and cuts a bit of a sarcastic interview and says, I hear Ken Shamrock's going to be the referee, the nice one, but stay out my way, Ken, mate, and people are going to say I begged for a title shot, but who can't agree that I don't deserve one? And they're still, again, tiptoeing closer and closer to the line with Bret, but, babyfaces in the WWF don't whine, they don't complain. That's not what they do. But Bret continues to justify it, and everything we've seen, he does get screwed a lot, so
Yeah,
it's fine, I suppose, to get the title shot. But we're set, it's a week out from WrestleMania, and they're going to have one last title match that could basically tip the main event upside down. It's Psycho Sid defending the title against Bret Hart in a steel cage, with the ramifications being that the matches at WrestleMania will stay the same, but only one of them will have the belt. So Steve Austin comes out and says, I'm no fan of Bret Hart, but obviously I want him to win because I want to win the WWF title at WrestleMania. Meanwhile, The Undertaker has now been kind of vocal about how he's gone through all of this personal turmoil and personal change, and he's not going to let the WWF title slip through his fingers. Now he's finally got the opportunity he so deserves. So, before we get into the match, I know I always sound biased, and I need you to bring me back down to earth here, but what a kind of ingenious set of circumstances they landed on the go-home edition of Raw before WrestleMania. After all the mess with the belt, what a final landing point they've hit on at the best time to do it.
Yeah, and it's needs must, isn't it? Because of the situation Shawn Michaels has put them in, and because of the situation they booked themselves with. Fuck, how do we make Sid and the Undertaker in any way interesting? Spoilers, they just don't. But they try. What can we do? What can we lean onto? And it's Bret and Steve, isn't it? And it's more than that. It's Steve causing mayhem, like the Raw you mentioned a couple of weeks before, obviously, where Bret loses the belt. Like that Raw's just built. So Austin again, he's very much leaning into the hyena element of his character, isn't he? At this point, where no one's safe, he's just going after anybody. And then Bret is obviously, like you say, the complaints are building up week on week on week. And to grapple Garrett's point, I think if you're paying attention, Bret's kind of almost turned heel already. But if you're not paying attention, the beauty of it is it's still Bret Hart, isn't it? If you're a fan who only tunes in for the big shows, you're still going to turn up and cheer Bret, aren't you? You're going to be like me when I hadn't seen the Jake the Snake Roberts turn heel yet when he's facing the Undertaker at WrestleMania 7. So to me, he was still the goodie. I didn't understand why my mates in the living room were cheering for the Undertaker. Isn't he a baddie? I don't quite understand. There's a lot of fans who are probably still like that. It's just of course I cheer Bret. Of course, you're supposed to cheer Bret, aren't you? You're not supposed to cheer Austin. But the ones who are clued in, the ones who are paying attention and seeing the way these tellies are going, are, again, gravitating more and more towards them. And you can feel that snowball of momentum around them. And it's the hottest things they've got. So it makes sense to use it to light everything up. It makes sense to use it to kind of brush against whatever's going on with Sid and Undertaker as well. Doesn't make quite as much sense for Shawn to be out there, which we'll get to. But, for the rest of it, it makes loads of sense, doesn't it? For this big go-home.
That's right. Yeah, I should mention they have, which again, Bret tries to play down. So I'm not bothered. He can go and find his smile. They have at least mentioned that Shawn Michaels will still be at WrestleMania. He's going to commentate on the main event. We all wish Shawn the best in his speedy recovery. Blah 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 blah.
It's gone in the observers at this time. From we all wish Shawn the best too. He's fucking full of it. It's a week later, and we're already literally a week after everyone's moved on to this fucking cunt. And again,
everybody's already figured him out. But yeah, so the match is set, and it's the main event, obviously, the last thing that we'll see on Raw before WrestleMania. And truthfully, in the beginning portion of the match, it's just Bret and Sid kind of in a brawl and escape race. They'll fight a little bit. One will put the other one down, and then the other will attempt to leave. It's eyes on the prize stuff. Bret Hart, again, has tweaked his working style to be willing to kind of jump Sid a little bit from behind or constantly trying to take his leg. He's not afraid to fight a little dirty, but it's always Bret's. It's always... Well, it's in a cage match. There's no rules, so nothing. It's not cheating if it's not cheating, So you kind of skews that line a little bit. But ultimately, as is often the case with the Fed in this period, business really picks up when Steve Austin arrives on the scene. Ultimately, Austin runs out for the first time when Sid is trying to leave through the door, and he just holds the door in place so that Sid can't leave. So Sid has to go over to the corner and climb instead. Later on, Sid has powerbombed Bret Hart as Steve Austin continues to patrol the cage, and Austin's looking at well, what do I do now? Bret's knocked out in the middle of the ring. He can't help himself. So as Sid goes to climb, Austin just shimmies up the cage himself and meets him, and they just start brawling on the top of the cage. The crowd are really starting to come up for the sort of bizarre visual of this after the months we've seen of Austin and Bret fighting one another. Bret recovers now, and he climbs into the corner, and suddenly it's a 2-on-1 on Sid with Bret and Austin both laying in the punches because they've got the same goal, they've got the same prize. And obviously what do you expect after that? An enormous pop greets the Undertaker, who sprints down to the ring full gear, and now he's up the cell, and you've got this four-way fist fight at the top of the cage. It's Austin who's the first eventually to drop down to the ground, and then Bret nails Sid with a superplex. That pulls the rest wrestlers back into the ring, and obviously Austin and Undertaker onto the floor. As Undertaker gets down to the floor, Austin just drills him with a steel chair, puts the boots in, puts the Undertaker down. But Sid is able to climb up in the meantime, maybe while like Austin's not available to go and do anything about it. Bret starts to walk to the door, and now security is so pissed off with Austin, they're just trying to pull him off the Undertaker and pull him away, pull him to the back, so he can't affect any change at this moment. Sid's climbing out on the far side. Bret is headed for the door, but what we don't see is the Undertaker recovering from Steve Austin's beating. He sprints across the front of the cage, slams the door in Bret Hart's face. Bret crumples to the mat right as Sid drops down looking knackered on the other side. Sid has retained the WWF title. He's going to WrestleMania as the champion, as Austin and Bret's submission match will just be for the sheer fact they absolutely hate each other. It's all in the post-match, but I suppose, well, your thoughts on that before we get to everything that's going to follow.
I mean, again, I just love that, like, it's the chaos of it, but it's also like the motivations of everybody. Like Austin, like I love that, because that's, again, the when we're going to get there, the secret sauce, I think, to the Bret match, like the finish to that, you kind of like, something a bit different about this Austin. And it's the same here. He's just a bit cleverer than your average heel, isn't it? I love that. He's like, well, it's not new for me. Because any other dumb heel on any other like half-baked like Collision or something like that would just be going after the person they hate, despite the fact it's going to hate you more if they lose. You want them to win. Like he's the heel who's actually got kind of heel at this point, who's got his head screwed on and sees that. But I also love you mentioned there about Undertaker coming out and getting that pop. Honestly, I think the psychology of that is that like people are actually seeing the Undertaker care about something for once. Like, because again, we've spent years with this character doing, you know, the old tricks and the, you know, obviously the coffin matches and all of that stuff, and it just being kind of drab and never being for me and you. I think there's a reason we're kind of tapped into this version of Undertaker, because again, he's got motivation. Like he cares about being the champion. He cares about, like, you know, his rivalries. He's actually emotionally involved in his rivalries, and there's a bit of hatred there. And obviously, you know, the stuff with Bret, where, you know, we get into it later with Bret thinking Undertaker was his friend this entire time, and it turns out he's not. Like all of it, it's actually a living, breathing human who you can actually invest in, and I think that's the secret to why that gets a pop. Also, Sid is there, but you know, the rest of it, fucking brilliant stuff. It's really good. It's
I like the Undertaker as well. I'll give him this one. I think, like, he knew that he couldn't completely just drop the character. Like you couldn't become the American Badass in 1997, but he understood that he had to become, as you say, a human being. And he, luckily for him, Mankind had given him a platform, hadn't he? Like again, you couldn't do that if the last thing he'd done had feuded with the corporation. But after the year he'd had with Mankind and Paul Bearer, there'd never been a better time for him to sort of let the mask slip, well, literally and figuratively, like let that sort of dead man mask slip and just become a guy that's done this for 7 years and has had the title for less than 7 days. Like there's a point where enough's enough, isn't it? You know,
massively. And that's the thing, you know, that's what you should be focusing on. It makes sense. So obviously it makes sense that this role goes off the air, focusing on these 4 men, and not anybody else who happens to
we'll get to our fave in a minute, but let's get to a man that has been obviously turned upside down by one of our faves, because interestingly, Bret Hart is staying in the ring, fuming, obviously having like lost his cage. In an unbelievable, I don't care what people say, every now and then this stupid shitty thing we like is art, right? The cage is being dismantled around a Bret Hart who is emotionally unraveling, and I don't think that is accidental symbolism, put it like that. You never ever see wrestlers taking place in a half cage ring, but basically the whole set is kind of broken down around Bret the Hitman Hart, and it comes to be extremely symbolic of the words he's about to spew. Jim Ross on commentary argues that Bret Hart has once again been screwed, while Vince McMahon argues, well, Austin was trying to screw Sid, so they're kind of in the same boat. So immediately the announcers are highlighting that, like, sometimes shit happens, and even when a babyface can rationalize it, it doesn't necessarily mean they're right. And that's a really lovely detail to build to what we're about to see. We go to an ad break, Bret see them. We come back from the break, and Vince McMahon, the interviewer, is in the ring holding the microphone. And as I say, the cage is still being dismantled, and Vince says, like, Bret, you must be so frustrated. And Bret just grabs him by his collar and just pushes him hard to the ground. And here we go. Of course, I've got it written down, but everybody can read this word for word their own way. Frustrated isn't a goddamn word for it. This is bullshit. You screwed me, everybody screwed me, and nobody does a goddamn thing about it. Nobody cares. Nobody in the building cares. Nobody in the back cares. There's so much goddamn injustice around here. I've had it up to here. Everybody knows it. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. Come on, Bret, keep on track. I should be the World Wrestling Federation champion. Everybody keeps turning a blind eye to it. You keep turning a blind eye to it. He's pointing at Vince McMahon, who at this point is just looking, staring up at Bret, the fallen hero, in complete disbelief. I got that Gorilla Monsoon turn a blind eye. Everybody in that goddamn wrestling room knows I'm the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. The fans like boo, and then he just suddenly like looks at any fan in particular and goes, and if you don't like it, tough shit. At this point, Steve Austin appears on the Titantron and says, typical Bret, you're a loser. You need to stop crying like a baby. Bret Hart tries to get a line in about saying, you know why you're stone cold? It's because your stones are cold. It's not the night for witticism with Bret. Just stick to ranting. Like, it's a shit line, but he challenges Austin to come out and fight him anyway. So Austin just disappears saying, yeah, I'm on my way. In the meantime, Sid starts walking back out. And Bret says, you know, that belt belongs to me. And Sid screams, I don't know shit, crybaby, which is like a sort of
one of the greatest lines ever.
Yeah, it's one of his forgotten half the brain we're live pal Sid flubs, but it's great all the same. He's getting in for the fight, but then before he can get in, the Undertaker's back out for the fight, and Sid and Bret are in a shoving match in the ring. And then Bret just pivots, swivels the hips, and does a running dive to blindside the Undertaker. He takes the Undertaker out on the floor, but before they can really get into it, Austin has now arrived. Austin brawls with Bret. Undertaker looks at them two brawl and thinks, well, fuck this, I'm got my world title fight. So he goes into brawl with Sid. So you've got the two brawls happening simultaneously. Jim Ross is unbelievable on the call here. He says, like, look at this intensity. Imagine what it's going to be like at WrestleMania. You get to see these two matches all at the same time. Buy the fucking pay-per-view because it's going to be this, but even better. In the meantime, all the officials come out. They're getting hit in the ring off the Undertaker and Sid. Like, a referee takes a shot. Gerald Briscoe takes a shot. So they kind of focus their attention on Bret and Austin's brawl on the floor. And then Pat Patterson, the Hall of Famer, the legend, tries to get in the middle of it. And Bret just swings to Pat Patterson. Vince McMahon calls him a dirty rotten, and Jerry Lawler has to cut him off, calling him a son of a bitch. Like, he's alienated everybody at this point. Bret Hart has not got a friend in the world. And speaking of Bret Hart not having a friend, as Bret and Austin brawl on the ramp, Bret looks up as the spotlight comes down, and Shawn fucking Michaels, the shit stirrer that caused this whole mess, is now stood on the ramp. Not limping, by the way, but just decides to have a casual walk through the war zone. Vince McMahon is like, no, Shawn, God. He treats these wrestlers like they're landmines. Don't walk near the wrestlers, Shawn. My precious, beautiful Shawn. You might tear your knee off. No, Shawn. Shawn kind of meanders around the ring. He picks up a broken piece of cage just in case he needs a weapon. He puts that down. He skips past Undertaker and Sid. He grabs a steel chair. He sort of guards himself to the ramp, and he sort of, again, looks upon these four warring wrestlers as they brawl to the back. Shawn's in the ring, and they've just given you, like, the ultimate hard sell. I've often compared wrestling as this, like, monthly sell of, right, well, on Sunday, it's the end of the world, and then right as the show's ending, saying, join us tomorrow night when the world restarts again. But this is an end of the world sales pitch, if there ever was one. Absolutely no way in hell, which, again, boggles my mind that the buy rate was so low. It really does prove that nobody was watching, because if you were watching this Raw, there is not a chance in hell you're not dropping $50 on WrestleMania, is there? You got to know.
It's one of those as well, isn't it? It's just, it feels like something you shouldn't be watching. You say that one, like when Vince sheepishly kind of gets in the ring to get Bret's words, it just feels like something you shouldn't be seeing. And like the way Bret kind of cuts the promo again feels like something you shouldn't be seeing, which I might be like alluding to maybe a memory there where I'm not 100% sure how much of this kind of appeared on British TV and how much they cut out of what Bret said there, because I don't remember in real time like seeing the amount of footage that's there.
Do you remember when the 2 hour Raws first started and we got a chopped up 1 hour one before they finally moved to two? I think it was late April, like that they moved to two. Because I remember getting the tape of Raw. I'm dying to talk about, but we can't yet. It's in another housekeeping. I think you might know the one I'm on about. But I remember having the full 2 hour one of that specific episode and being so glad it was the whole lot rather than the chopped up 1 hour.
Yeah, same thing with Nitro, wasn't it? Obviously on the other channel, it was an hour for so long, and I think I was a kid and I just didn't really fully grasp that it was a 2 hour show chopped down to 1 hour. I just thought it was action powered hour of the week. But that kind of makes sense. That makes sense why it would kind of not stick out in the memory in that same way. But yeah, that's it. It's red hot. I would just kind of say, I don't think it's the reason the buy rate isn't great. Again, that's it. But the other reason, again, I love Sean. It just felt like to me, like we're just focusing on Sean at the end of it. As much as all the mayhem is great, as much as I'm into Bret and Steve, again, much as I'm not into Sid, it's like he just shouldn't be there, should he? Like, never mind, we shouldn't see it. Like, it's you said it there. It's the week before WrestleMania. He's just told us he's leaving and he's fucking off and he can't wrestle anymore and he can't be part of WrestleMania. Oh, what a shame! He's going off into the sunset. He's just right in the fucking thick of it again. Like, if you told me because all the mayhem was kicking off, and it was a shoot that Sean just wandered from backstage just to put a bit of the attention on him, and they were like, shit, we better put him on commentary then, I guess, on Sunday, just so that makes a lick of sense. I'd believe that. And again, maybe that's, why all this works. It feels like, real, genuine chaos. But I just, my brain just goes right back to that. It's like, I don't know if that was your moment, Sean, but I guess it adds to the mayhem of it, even if it isn't necessarily selling much outside of a commentary appearance.
I guess as well, you've got to, they've learnt this lesson the hard way, I guess. The amount of times where they had I would say 1995 is the best example. They've got so few stars that, like, when they're a bit stingy with them and when there isn't a big Bret program or a Bret Sean program, you're thinking, what you're doing? You need to use every ace in your pack. And this is an example of them doing that, isn't it? It's like, if we can get as much face time for the big names as possible, we'll chuck them out there and we'll do our best, This is weird. It's WrestleMania 13. It's we talked about this before we recorded. It's, for my money, still the best WWE match ever. I think it's the most historically significant match in company history. I think the reason Triple H gets to live his charmed life in 2025 is because Bret Hart and Steve Austin had a match in 1997. I think the butterfly effect of this match is everything. However, and I won't do your plug for you, but I would welcome anybody to go to the What Culture Wrestling YouTube channel to watch Best Match Ever, where myself and Michael Sidgwick cover this match in over an hour plus's worth of detail, such as the quality of it. And I understand you're very much in the same boat. It's not one that we feel like we need to cover in detail for housekeeping because we've covered it in detail multiple other times. Yeah.
I think we did it on Steve. We did the whole Steve Austin show. I'm sure the Bret Show lads have done it as like a solo one. I think we might have reviewed the whole WrestleMania as well. Yeah, we've been in it, but it's one of those matches that deserves it, doesn't it? Obviously, it's there's a reason we both covered it before.
It's magic. It's mad. And of course, Taker does defeat Sid at WrestleMania. We'll get back a little bit to the Undertaker.
Just to check, lowest buy rate of WrestleMania ever. Yeah, that is the number. Saying that, I read the Observer. Apparently, the largest case in Chicago at that point for WWE. So you win some, you lose some. Sid, give them that. Obviously, Tony Khan would make that go to the past, but at the time, still great.
There's something quite fitting about it being the lowest buy rate and then having that match, isn't it? It's like as if you needed one night to like be the perfect site to have a match that ultimately changes everything. It's like when the least people have paid to watch. So when by the time that it's our example of the playground yet again, there's only me and you watching, but we're seeing the green shoots by the time that people are back.
To that point, like, do you think it should? We'll get, obviously, I'm sure we're getting into the match, but like, and the outcome of it, like, do you think that should have been for the belt? Like, do you think that would have been like, would you have been tempted to do that at the time? Is it because of, like, say, the personal issue and because of this, very complex story to tell him with Bret and Steve? That's they don't want Steve to, have to lose a world title match. Like, I just watching it back, all these years later, it's easy to look at it with hindsight, isn't it? But it wouldn't have changed much if it was for the belt. Bret could have still won. Steve could have still lost, but look good in defeat. Could you have told the story anyway? Would it have been a more marketable, match for your main event of WrestleMania than Sid and Undertaker? Because it feels like a match from the future and a match from the past. These top two matches.
The only reason I would say no to that is because I don't think the Bret character works as well with the title. He's too he's too centered.
What's he mad about?
The world title. Yeah, like the world title is Bret's North Star, isn't it? And obviously the story as it goes, as we'll get into, is that like this happens a lot in wrestling. The wrestler believes that they're going to have every problem in their life vindicated simply by winning a match. And Bret Hart is about to find out the hard way that that's not the case. He thought by beating Steve Austin, he'd get the vindication he was desperate for, and he actually gets the opposite.
Yeah, the only way you could get there probably to the same space is to have Austin win, which would undo one of the greatest matches in wrestling history, wouldn't it? So yeah, you probably couldn't have gone that route.
And I think as well, I don't know if this was by accident or by design, but then the way that they feature Austin in the Raw credits is like a statement of intent, isn't it? That like they know now what we all know as fans, that this is maybe the guy, the guy. But the Undertaker being the world champion is sort of a gift in that regard, because you would see that now with like the two titles, the for the want of a better phrase, and maybe as we record this one that isn't going to be for much longer, the Seth world title. Like the Undertaker can sort of hold that world title and be involved in important programs because it's the Undertaker, but he doesn't necessarily have to be the main guy, because that's very clearly Bret and Steve now, and you've sort of got that. True. You can do both, can't you? You know,
keep that warm.
Yeah. But yes, so the Undertaker wins, and to cement really what's happened in the match, Bret Hart comes out before the match, cuts this bitter promo on Sid, says that the Undertaker, when he slammed the door on my head, you slammed the door on our friendship. He leans over to the commentator's table and says, Sean, stay out of the match. Like, go and find your smile, or like heal your knee or whatever, but you stay out of it. And all of Chicago's booing. And then obviously Bret Hart's involved in the finish where he kind of screws with the match, but screws Sid as well. So he's kind of become everything he said he didn't want to, but now he's teeing up what's coming on this Raw.
Yeah. It's quite funny as well in that, like, when you kind of looking back at the Austin, quote unquote double turn with Bret, you remember the match, you remember the outcome, you remember the emotion you felt at Austin not tapping, you remember, like I said earlier, feeling, oh, he's a bit different than the other heroes. Oh, Bret's not quite Bret anymore. It's almost like it was all there on paper. It was all there on the telly if you were playing close attention, but like it's probably laid out for you there. The bit that people forget is exactly what you mentioned there. It's like, it's all of that. I was watching it back going, oh yeah, I forgot Bret came out. I forgot Bret had anything to do with the world title match on the show here as well. And that's almost like the punctuation on it, isn't it? It's like, oh, he really is a whiny bitch, because even Sid's pointing it out, and if Sid notices, then I guess that's just the fucking character at this point, isn't it? Like it's the punctuation on it that I'd forgotten was even there.
Yeah, they're not kind of afraid of it or trying to like drop hints at this point. They want everybody as caught up as possible before we get to what's about to happen, which is the Raw after WrestleMania. Bret comes to the ring. He's looking quite forlorn and quite serious. This is March 24th, the Raw after WrestleMania. And he takes the microphone and he says, first of all, he wants to apologize. Yeah, he wants to apologize to his fans in Germany, in Great Britain, in Japan, in Far East, in the Middle East, in South Africa, and especially the fans in Canada. And then he says, and to you, all my fans across the USA from coast to coast, to you, I apologize for nothing. It seems really strange to me now, how hard I try. I beat Steve Austin to a bloody pulp. The way you treat me, I feel like I lost. You treat him back to the dressing room like he won. And it doesn't just start here. It goes back to WrestleMania last year. And this is where Bret pulls out his big list of enemies and complaints. It's brilliant. And like, what I love about this is that like, here is a man telling you he's not bitter and using all the examples of his bitterness to prove
Don't tell the internet I'm bitter.
Well done.
Don't tell America online I'm bitter.
This is this, and then finally it kind of all comes flooding out. Let's go back to WrestleMania last year. I didn't need to stay in for overtime, but I did. And then I'll watch you from Canada cheer on a pretty boy like Shawn Michaels. You allowed him to screw me out of the belt. I love how when he came back in October in that interview, we were like, Shawn Michaels beat me fair and square, and now he's saying, yeah, he screwed me out of the belt. So that's my first complaint. I'm watching the WWF on TV at home, and I'm looking and I'm thinking the WWF needs a hero, needs a role model, somebody that they can look up to. Right, okay, Bret. This is where he goes on, and he does this rant quite a lot in 1997. And I know in his book, he sort of pleads ignorance and says, I didn't want to do half this stuff. I'm not totally convinced, because I think he knew where the heat was. And he says, some guy that's got earrings and tattoos, some people that was posing in girly magazines. And by the way, I don't think it was a girly magazine. I think it was a gay magazine. And it's very 1997 how much he hangs on that line and waits for the reaction, and like gets to sort of use that homophobia as part of the heel character. Like it's sort of, I suppose on one hand, you're like, well, I know what you're doing here, Bret, and it's not great, mate. But on the other, you are being a bad guy now. So I suppose I can disagree with the character's views. I don't know. Tries to walk a line there. But then he kind of catches himself back up and he says, so I saw all this and I wanted to clean up the WWF. So I come back in the Survivor Series. I beat Stone Cold Steve Austin. And then I fight Sid. And again, he can't help it. He says, and then Shawn Michaels, the boy toy, your hero, your pride and joy, cost me the belt. And nobody cared. You people didn't do anything about it. So then they tell me, oh, that's all right, Bret, just go and win the Royal Rumble. You just got to beat 29 other guys. And I did. I won. I was the last legal man. But again, everybody just turns their back. Maybe I should have just quit. And then Vince, remembering that Raw that we recapped on Housekeeping, just gets a bit pissed off on commentary. He's like, you did, Bret. You did quit. So then Bret takes the narrative back and he says, so Vince and Gorilla beg me to stay. They beg me not to quit. And then he talks about how the Final Four was supposed to give him a WrestleMania title fight. And he says, well, all of a sudden, your champion, your hero, Shawn Michaels, comes up with this life-ending, career-ending knee injury, and he forfeits the title so he can go home and find his smile. But that's okay. You people seem to think that's okay. So I go into the Final Four, and who won that match? Me. I didn't get to rest, of course. I had 24 hours, and then I had to defend the title against Sid. But that was okay, because I had him tied up in a knot in the sharpshooter. But you beloved American wrestling fans didn't care when Steve Austin hit me in the head with the chair, did you? And he just keeps putting this, like, keeps going back to this, your hero, like the American fans that have picked Austin, that have picked Michaels, that have picked Sid, all these, like, little things that have just irked away at him and ate away at him, and so much of it, as much as he doesn't want to admit it, or the problems in front of his face, he just feels like his ego's been bruised. The fans are more than permitted to turn against him, but he doesn't like that as much as he doesn't like the injustice. Where now, Bret, the complaints about the injustices, now you're just complaining about people having the right to choose somebody else. And it's funny how the argument in this promo shifts from everything that he's been doing beforehand, where it was like, I was screwed by this, I was screwed by that. Now it's like, I was screwed and that annoyed me, but it annoyed me more that you didn't fight for me. And I love how he's pivoted that now. Now he is just a whinging cunt rather than somebody that's got all these actual axes to grind. So he puts a...
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like the blurring the lines as well, though, isn't it? Like between like the real Bret and between like the Bret here. Because I'd love to be, you say there about him allegedly putting up a fight over doing some of this material. Like, it's like, you know, when they re-signed him, and like, it's, you know, at the time, I think there was rumors Hogan might be coming back to WWF, and apparently Vince told him at one point, oh, if he does come back though, you'll get you in back, Bret, and that's all he needs to hear, you know. And I imagine when they were like pitching this, oh, you're going to turn heel, but guess what, Bret, you get to be right. He was probably like, yeah, that's all I needed to hear. Great, as long as I'm right. That's the main thing. He loves that, doesn't he? And then also the moaning element of this character again is leaning into the reality. Bret is a bit of a moaner. Bret is a bit of a downer, isn't he? You see it to this day and it's great entertainment when he's doing it, you know, kicking down on Goldberg or whoever is it, or Triple H or whoever his enemy of the week is. Usually them two, or Ric Flair, usually one of the three at any given point. But like the real Bret is in there somewhere. I'm fascinated, like the psychology. Like, does he recognize that? To go, you know what? If I had to, did they like have a conversation with Julie Hart and be like, what's my worst trait? And she was probably like, well, you know, apart from, you know, shagging on the road, the worst thing you probably do, mate, is you moan a lot. And he's tapped into it. Like, again, psychologically, like, he's had to accept that is the worst element of my personality. I'm just going to drive it home. I'm going to lean on it and lean on it and lean on it. He goes up to a line of ridiculousness here, doesn't he? Obviously, where he is right. But at the same time, like, when you got Vince pointing out the hypocrisy of it, you know, that says something about the character. But the real man being willing to push that button, you know, the real element of his character that in real life, Shawn Michaels, the real man, doesn't like backstage as well. Like the blending of the two, like it's marvelous. Like it's just a great, like it's great self-awareness from Bret, if anything, for a man who says he's got no self-awareness. He's leaning into probably the worst part of his real actual personality and getting, you know, this money drawing angle out of it. It's sublime stuff to watch him do.
It's one thing for Steve Austin to say, you know, what figured out for me was that I needed to be myself, but turned up to 11. But it's quite another when he's got an opponent who's doing the exact same thing, isn't it? You know, absolutely. Like the fact that, as you point out, like if Bret being the consummate professional has to tap into something, and the thing he has to tap into is totally, you know, this is not a guy that's having to find something to talk about fighting a dentist. This is a man that's going to like completely tap into actual things that have happened backstage and just work them into the fiction and work them into the story. It's such a lovely, and again, like, because there was so many changeable elements, it's so nice that there's such a confluence of the reality and the fiction that this can work. Like, they really couldn't have had this feel as convincing if it had been a smooth road to WrestleMania and he'd lost like one match or something. You know, the Royal Rumble alone is not a screw job enough, is it? There's got to be this building and building and building. And he puts a capper on it. He says, you know, so after being screwed over by everybody and abandoned by all of you lot, I decide that I'm going to give Austin what he deserves at WrestleMania, a good old-fashioned ass whooping. And when I do it, when I beat that lousy stinking hyena up, you abandon me and you cheer him. And Vince McMahon just says the poison is spewing from Bret Hart, and he's not wrong. And Bret sort of says, I tried to be everything you wanted me to be, which is such a great line after he's just bollocked the fans for 10 minutes straight. But it seems like you don't understand what it means to have dignity, poise, and class. You'd rather cheer for heroes like Charles Manson and O.J. Simpson. Nobody glorifies criminal conduct.
Which gets
like
a boo,
US.
by the way.
It does get a boo for OJ. Bret takes a pause and he says, respect. And he says, all you American fans coast to coast, you don't respect me. The fact is, I don't respect you. And that's very much as you fans can stick it, brother, isn't it? The fans get it at this point. Lots of boos for that. He says, you don't deserve it. So from here on in, the American wrestling fans coast to coast can kiss my ass. So the fans are booing. They're soaking in everything that Bret has said here. And then here he is again. Shawn Michaels is back, Benno. And,
we'll do a match, are we? Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, that's great.
he's got a microphone. Yo, Hitman. Let me get one thing perfectly straight. I feel like somewhere as I recap this, the Bretro boys are going to be having about 6 different aneurysms at the amount of hypocrisy that spews forth from Shawn Michaels here. But we'll try and plow through this with straight faces because Shawn Michaels does, so we can. He says, you can say whatever you want about me. Everyone does. But no one knows better than me or the WWF that it takes a handwritten note from the Lord Almighty to get the belt off you, the great Bret Hart. So we're starting hot. He gets in the ring and he says, Bret, you don't understand that because I choose to live my life openly and freely instead of putting on a facade like you do does not make you the better man. Bret, I'm well aware of my faults. As far as Steve Austin goes, Bret, I was there last night. He didn't give up. I'm no fan of Austin, but he passed out. You know, somewhere there's got to be some of the old hitman left. You got to admit that Steve Austin's one tough son of a bitch. Bret, I have tried and tried and tried to take the high road. I know you're tougher than me. I mean, I'm in no shape to wrestle, but you're tougher than me, blah, blah, blah. But I don't obsess with being number one like you do. I do this because I like it. This, Benno, is the greatest thing I've ever heard. You do this because in your mind, Mark, man, you really think all of this is yours. Every time these fans reach into their pocket, they have the right to cheer or boo anybody they want. They're cheering me now, but they booed me before. You ready for this one? But you didn't see me get bent out of shape. And then you hear a fan heckles going, you are a liar. Like that. So one's on him. Shawn says, the United States has a First Amendment that allows us all to live as we want. You know, they can get piercings. He points at a fan in the crowd. He says, you see her? She can go out with anybody she likes. And if you don't like it, Bret, tough titty, said the kitty. And he says, now I'm in no shape to go, but if you want to go, we'll go. But Bret, just remember, we've got a saying here in America, love it or leave it. And he gets right up close to Bret. And Bret says, Shawn Michaels, boy toy, I think you should go back to the dressing room and get the hell out of my face. So Shawn gets even closer up to Bret's face at this point. Now they can smell each other's breath. And Shawn says, you know me, Bret, I'm not real good with authority. By the way, how did you know I was in that girly magazine? You just couldn't help it, could you? You had to flip through the pages just a little bit. And with that, Shawn's obviously realizing he's not getting through to Bret. So he goes to leave. And then as he turns his back, Bret jumps him from behind with a kick to the injured leg. He goes right for that knee. Hammer. Drags him over at the ring post figure 4 leg lock. Shawn is screaming for his life. He's selling it like pure death. Vince McMahon's having a heart attack on commentary. He leaves the commentary desk to try and do something about it. Don't know what he's got in mind at this point, but he doesn't have to worry about that because Psycho Sid starts walking down the ramp. Obviously, Bret screwed him out the title the night before at WrestleMania. And what does Bret do? He cowers. He runs away. He doesn't quite run away. He lets go with the hold, and then he sort of walks around the ring, slides into the ring. Sid keeps following. Bret slides under the ring, under the bottom rope, out to the aisle. Sid goes to check on Shawn Michaels, and Bret the Hitman Hart backs down from the fight. Heel turn, check, completed. Hey, I mean, God almighty, what is... Oh, my God.
It's just incredible, you know. Obviously... Shawn turning heel, it is such a big it's Bret that turned heel. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, maybe it's just Shawn turning heel on young me, because I'm watching this going, oh man, I'm just mad at Shawn. Why weren't you at WrestleMania? And why do I also know that this fucking King of the Ring match is not happening coming up? Like, I'm just getting mad at Dad for leaving me behind when he said he was going out for a pint of milk. But like, the end of this is brilliant. And like the Gaily Mag line, and that Sean's got him there. That's really good. The real Michael Hickenbottom is loving that he's got Bret on that one, because even Bret smirks like, oh yeah, I guess I would have had to actually look at the magazine to say the things I'm saying. Damn it, you got me there, Sean. Like, that's up here. Then down here for me is Markman and say hello to the fucking tough titty for the kitty, or whatever the fucking line is. Like, there's some of it in here where he's going off about like free speech. Like, he did well to truncate that, because I feel like he goes on for about 20 minutes about America and free speech, and he's clearly lost his line before he worms his way back into it and gets there. But it's all worth it for the payoff. Like, it is literally, it's a joke, but it's the line under it. Bret kicking his leg out. It's like, Bret a month ago wouldn't have done this. Bret 3 months ago, 6 months ago, definitely not a year ago would have done this. And it's like, as unlikable as Sean kind of is in moments in this segment, he's still very much a defined babyface. And it's like, this is the line fully crossed by Bret, isn't it? And it's off to the races from there as well. And obviously, tinged with the anti-American Canadian stuff in there as well, which again, I love that. Like, obviously, we're going to be talking all about that this summer, but like all of it, like the fact that it really is, it's a very 80s America bad, foreign country good like gimmick, but delivered by Bret with the authenticity that Bret brings. Like, he nails that element of it as well. He doesn't beat you over the head with it like Sean does, but it works perfectly as justification for him to be this heel character. And like you say, it's job done by the end of the segment.
Sean's stuff about, you wouldn't see me obsess over being the top guy, and like this, like if you're Bret, like I don't know how he holds back from not smacking him in the face. Like, he's just, how on
I understand why
earth
JP and Gareth hate the cunt now. I think I'm getting it. I think I'm being turned, Michael. I might be a Bret by the end of this podcast.
But you see, this is the thing, right? So like, this is why I've always like struggled with this Bret versus Sean thing, because everything we're witnessing is true, and yet the fact that he's got the stomach and the dick and balls to go out and say that eyes wide open. I watch wrestling not because I want to relate to these people, but because I want to be wowed by them. Never would I live my life like 1997 Shawn Michaels does, but I get to watch him doing it, and I find that, like, it's funny you mentioned about the attack at the end, and I could be misreading you here, because we're going to do a lot of these Bret and Sean. This was the strategy of Vince McMahon, wasn't it? Just get yourselves out there, like, keep to a rough outline of bullet points, but then otherwise say whatever the fuck you like. What could possibly go wrong? But that was the strategy for months between these two. We've already like covered a couple of them, and like, I would just say, I kind of observe that you obviously are so much more focused on what matters than I am, the business, because the figure four leg lock and the heel turn is selling. The heel turn is selling a match. They're working, they're working together. Sean, unlike Goldberg, holds Bret's foot when he hits the deck, like on the figure four leg lock. They're actually working. I'm staring, jaw on the ground, chin hitting the table at the stuff that is the little glimpse of reality that's ultimately going to get in the way of the work. I can't get enough of the stuff that's actually going to obstruct the matches happening, because there isn't going to draw any money, there isn't going to draw a dime, like, because I'm the right age for not believing what I'm seeing in front of me. That one thing is very distinctly pro wrestling, the other is just something else entirely.
It's interesting as well, because again, I love the just the spot as an aside, the figure four on the post, like as Bret's like heel move. Oh, it's fucking golden, is it? It's brilliant, and obviously you get plenty of that this summer. But that's still interesting, because I always find that interesting about Bret and Sean. Like, did you see? Was it Inside the Ropes did like a thing with Bret recently? It was an outlet like that, and like Bret, they were asking Bret like who he'd like to work with, that like last one on type of game, and like he went with Sean for quite a few rounds versus loads of other wrestlers, and it was dead interesting, because it was like, can you imagine like the person you hate most in your life, or like an enemy you had in school when you were 12 and 13? Would you trust them with your body in the way that wrestlers trust each other with their bodies? And I would declare that as bad as it ever gets with Bret and Sean, I think both of them do trust each other with their bodies. Like, there's never, it's not Hangman Page and CM Punk, is it? Where CM Punk's scared for his life when he's in there with Hangman Page. Like, unless I'm forgetting something, and maybe we'll get something as we go through the year. I can't think of a moment where it's like, oh, Sean could have caught Bret there, he didn't fully catch him. Because you see that on the indies. I've seen that myself in Brit Rest with guys. Like, it's very interesting that, like, yeah, there's a little bit of niggle there, and there's a little bit of that. But when it comes to, like, say, the professional side of it, it's hard to point out flaws like that, because they're not there, because they actually are, despite all the hatred, very professional with each other. And I can't think of another rivalry like that where you trust the two of them to do the things they do.
That's a really good point, actually, because it's jumping ahead here a little bit, but it made me think when you said that, it makes me think of like Sean livid, thinking that Bret went over his time on purpose in that wheelchair super kick promo.
That's what they're mad about, yeah.
But then the super kick is one of the best sells of the super kick ever. So the physicality is perfection. But Sean in his mind can simultaneously think, you fucked me there, but also thanks for doing a great job of selling the super kick. Like, which is it? Like,
exactly. He never goes, oh, he gave me a black eye on purpose there or anything like that. No. Look here with loads of other wrestlers. Tell us in the comments if you can think of an example with Bret and Sean, but genuinely, I can't think of one.
No, it's quite remarkable. And this, I guess, is like Sean's 5th write-off from television since we've been doing this podcast, basically. But this obviously cements Bret Hart's heel turn, and Shawn Michaels will go away. He'll come back. But that's the end of Shawn Michaels for now. Because Bret's got some more business to attend to.
That we don't need milk that much. I'll be holding onto his leg. Come on.
This is like the development where Bret gets to like fully flesh out the character. And it's almost like if Sean was still around, it wouldn't be possible, would it? Because the obsession would consume him to such an extent where it's like, nah, I've got to do something with Sean. I can't be seen to be ignoring Shawn Michaels on television.
The other thing I was going to say as well, just quickly about Sean. Again, he's perfect. Again, whatever we think of him in real life, he's that great. Okay, very clearly Bret's turned there. He's also the first one, really, isn't he, to say, oh, how fucking brave was Steve Austin last night? I don't like everything he does, but fair play. I know the commentators were on that like during WrestleMania, but again, that's an important point for Steve. It's an endorsement from the super babyface from the year before.
Who's like, he comes out in a sort of like for those that haven't watched this segment, he's in like a beige suit. His hair's nice again. There's no stubble. There's no sunglasses. He's purposely put himself on to be the most babyface version of himself as a contrast to what Bret's going to be doing, hasn't he? They're not like they're not trying to be subtle and blur the lines at all. Sean's the goodie here, despite half the stuff he says. Sean's the good guy.
Yeah, and has ever done. But yes.
But yeah, March 31st, Monday Night Raw. So a week later, still obviously dealing with the other consequences. In the background, we've had a good laugh at the Bulldog and Owens tag team title run being almost entirely against heels because they've been working this split program for what feels like about 6 months. And sure enough, on the same Raw where Bret turns heel, tensions boil over during a tag team title defense against the Headbangers. And the match is set for next week. Obviously, they've wrestled once in the European title tournament, and it was just about a friendly rivalry, but it was yet one more thing that was building the jealousy between the two. And it boils over. Bulldog and Owen have a match against one another, but it immediately sort of gets out of hand and it gets more violent than it needs to. You are seeing the complete crumbling, the complete breaking down of this tag team, of these brother-in-laws. And Owen has gone to bring a chair into the ring. Bulldog counters the chair and then clotheslines Owen hard onto the steel chair in the ring. So now, weapons are involved. He's picked the chair up. The match has been thrown out and he's about to bat at Owen. But then Bret Hart runs down and grabs the steel chair and uses it to to take down Bulldog. And he puts the chair across Bulldog's throat and he's pointing at him. He's saying, leave it, leave it. Owen Hart kind of creeps closer to the two of them and Bret points at Owen and says, no, you get back, you get back. And Bret has to wait until he's got like Bulldog's trust that he's not going to hit him and don't hit me. And he finally kind of leaves off and lets go. And he kind of like Owen, being Owen, basically constantly keeps trying to go for the Bulldog. Bulldog keeps trying to snap back. And Bret has to like physically put himself in the middle of both men. This is like 2 or 3 goes around where they're trying to separate each other, And Bret finally gets a microphone when he's pushed them both to one side, and he just gets on the microphone and he says, stop it. This is what these people want. Look at it. They've had us fighting for years. What are you two fighting for? To satisfy a bunch of people that don't even know the first thing about family values. And they're kind of still scrapping. And he's like, stop. He's like, I'm asking you. And then he says, I need you. And then they both sort of stop and look. And there's a USA chant, I guess pointed at nobody in particular. And Bret says, yeah, USA, a country based on brother versus brother, talk shows with families airing their problems because they all hate each other. Well, that's what they've done with our family. They've turned us all into a bunch of haters. They've turned me against you. And he's talking at British Bulldog at this point. He says, we fought like 2 men at Wembley Stadium. When we come back to America, what happens? They turn us against each other. Look what happened with Diana and me. And look at you and me. And he looks at Owen Hart and the camera catches Owen's face, like wrapped with confusion and aggression and adrenaline and everything. And Bret just really sort of like takes his time with this. He says, look what they've done to you and me. I was the one that got you in at the World Wrestling Federation, Owen. And then Actually, I'm going to save a little detail because there's one extra thing I really love about this. And so he's still talking to Owen. He says, and what did they do? They pushed us against each other. They drove a wedge. And you see kind of Owen thinking carefully about it. And Bret's like, Owen, I dressed you for school. You're my youngest brother. I got you ready for school every day. I made sure you made the school bus. Remember that teacher that picked on you? I was only 13, and I was the one that went and set that teacher straight. Who was the one that even talked you into being a wrestler? This is great. The only ones that excelled in our family, take that Bruce, take that Keith, were me and you. And what happened? What happened? They turned us against each other. And Owen thinks, and Owen nods, and Owen agrees. And Benno, this is where I just want to go back a little bit, because as Vince and as JR kind of sit back and try and digest it, Jerry the King Lawler says, Bret Hart's making a lot of sense about the Hart family here. And you're like, you motherfuckers, what are you doing? So Bret takes it back again. He says, Owen, Davey, I'm asking, I need you. Owen, look me in the eye. Nobody was there for me more than, nobody was there for you more than I was. But I don't need these people. Not anymore. Owen, I love you. And Owen, at the sound of I love you, just shoot, breaks down in tears. Says off mic, says, I love you too. Bret and Owen hug. Bulldog gets in. Bret and Bulldog hug. All three of them hug. Bret Hart catches the hard camera and scowls over the shoulder of the hug, just looking upon everyone with disgust. Jerry Lawler's in tears on commentary. The Harts have reunited and Jerry Lawler is calling it beautiful. Bret throws the microphone on the ground. He scowls at Vince at the desk. And Vince and Jerry Lawler JR just look at Lawler, who's trying to hide that he's crying. He's the one of all people that's got sympathy for these three people, as Vince McMahon and Jim Ross question the motives of Bret the Hitman Hart reuniting the Hart Foundation. Again, as a kid, this was absolute holy shit.
It's incredible TV. It's not just Lawler who's the one who might shock you that gets upset. I feel emotional like talking about it now and watching it. Maybe that's the reality of Owen and everything as well. But like, it is proper lump in your throat stuff. Like, as much as Bret's being a knob and Bret's using them to his own ends, it's like the lens he goes to. Obviously hits that family values point a few times. Could be the housekeeping title. That's to do a spotlight. Throw that in there. But like, genuinely, like, everything he says makes so much sense, doesn't it? Like, again, this is the real man, Bret Sergeant Hart, as the lads will say. He's sat there and he's thought through, okay, if I was going to put a stable together with Owen and Davey, how would we even get there? And, he deals with Davey quite quickly, Wembley Stadium, and then they turned us against each other and uses Diana. That all makes sense. And then it's Owen where it has to be a hard sell, doesn't it? Because we've all seen the history on TV, both the Owen Hart character and us as fans. And that logical part of Bret's brain is going like, okay, I've got to justify this in some way. Why would Owen team up with me? I've got to make sense with it. And grabbing that material, you believe it? I bet you that all happened as a shoot. I bet he really did dress Owen. I bet he did. I bet Bret Hart was that 13-year-old dude actually growing his pubes out and was the one who went and beat up the teacher or whatever. He said he was set the teacher straight. Like, he was 100% that guy at school. I believe that too. It also makes Bret look good, so of course he's going to mention that. Like, that works too. But even down from a kayfabe point of view, the fact that it's not just obviously the I love you line's big, but it's the fact that I need you. Like, that's massive too. You can tell again the layers to this. The heel Owen Hart character who spent this entire time to just basically trying to be as good as Bret. What did he actually really want? He wanted Bret's endorsement, didn't he? He wanted Bret's love. He's the typical younger brother. So of course he melts and he falls into his arms. Like, it's perfect. And like, I'm like you in that last segment. I'm watching it from that point of view, but I'm also watching like Bret ruffles Owen's hair, doesn't he? Which is a great little touch. Like, it adds to that. And Owen being, Owen the prankster and all that. Like, when they all hug, he starts ruffling both Davey and Bret's hair at the same time. And you can see the both of them about to crack and they're trying not to laugh because clearly he's called an audible there, which is just Owen for you, isn't it? But like, it doesn't quite break, it doesn't quite ruin it, but it also adds to it. It's quite funny. It's just brilliant stuff. Like, it is like this stuff. Again, I feel emotional talking about it. It's proper like, wow. I remember at the time watching it going, as much as these are the heels, obviously never knowing that I actually wanted this too. That I kind of wanted them all together. Or never pictured the idea of, because you never pictured Bret as a heel, did you? You never pictured Bret and Owen and Davey and eventually Jim all in the air on the same side as well. It's magic. It really is. It's the most obvious thing to do if you're turning Bret Hart's heel, is to align him with those lads. And yet at the same time, you almost don't see it coming. It's just, chef's kiss, all of it.
It's incredibly carefully done, the anti-America stance, isn't it? Like, if you think about it, like, when Bret starts...
He'd be fucked if Davey was American, wouldn't he? Imagine it was Lex Luger that married Diana. They'd be like, oh, shit, this story doesn't make any sense now. At least he's British, you know?
It's funny because, like, me and you have talked about this. Like, we were those fans that were sort of turning on Bret and kind of falling in love with Steve Austin. But then he cuts a promo saying, to all my fans in the UK, I love you just as much as I always did. And I was like, yeah, thanks, Bret. Love you too, mate. Love you too. Whatever. Like, but from, like, it's not that much of a leap, is it? From turning on the American fans to then just like saying, oh, and while I've got you, your family values are shit as well. Like, he doesn't go overnight to like sort of like waving the Canadian flag and spitting on the American flag or anything like that. It's all a very delicate sort of handling of, right, Bret's pissed off about 20 things, but how can we make one of the things he's pissed off about the rationale for going to Bulldog and Owen? And then simultaneously, when he's kind of manipulating them a little bit, he can bring them in as almost like a cult figure. So when he does start ramping up the sort of the pro-Canadian rhetoric, it's all done from this fairly solid foundation. I mean, it's the story of the turn, I guess, is it? Nothing about this turn has been done without the most delicate of touches and like an incredible amount of care.
Massively so. It's brilliant. It really is. It's next level stuff that you ain't getting a year before. As much as we love 1996 Fed, like the layers to this just are unbelievable. I love you mentioned there as well. Like I always love that though. When it's like, you know, we kind of, we wanted to carry on cheering Bret, but you'd notice that when it came to the UK shows, like some people would cheer, others would cheer for Austin. Yeah. You get that in Canada as well, wouldn't you? Obviously, for the rest of this year, Austin becomes a heel there and a facing in America, which is kind of the dynamic. But like the second Bret leaves, it's like all the Canadians are made up. They've got to just forget, okay, we can Steve Austin, can we cheer him now? Great, let's just get into it. Yeah. But like they play along at least for the time being. But it's brilliant. It makes so much sense for the character. It makes so much sense for the compelling TV we're about to like hook up to both of our veins. I'm so excited to get into all of it. Like, what an angle! I'm so glad we talked it.
I know it's very Fed as well, but I like when they do that. It's almost that sort of like, right, is there anybody that hasn't yet picked up what we're putting down here? Like, and then they get the proof of that is typically something like an endorsement by a heel commentator. But what a heel commentator! It to be Jerry Lawler. Like that is like that's a bit of an icing on that. That's very Fed in the delivery, right? Make the baddies stick up for Bret's methodology. But when it's Jerry Lawler getting emotional about the Hearts, that's by design, isn't it? They know what they've got with those characters.
And I think the in as well is like Jerry was always the homer for Owen, wasn't he? Like it was always Owen's point of view. He saw it over Bret's. And I guess tapping into the logic, the same manipulation Bret does to Owen clearly works on Lawler as well, because Owen is his North Star in the story. Owen gets emotional, so Jerry gets emotional. Like kind of, it's still consistent, even if it's a bit wacky. It's just, but it's also like hilarious because it's, of course, Lawler would do that. Like it works in all ways.
It's magic. We will get to what Bret Hart is up to at Revenge of the Taker before we close out this housekeeping, but it would be rude.
I suppose, start a Bret Hart podcast. Maybe we're like weekly, we just do, instead of Bret matches, we do Bret angles. Should we just do that for the rest of the year? Just do all the Bret's promos. And we'll pair them with like an old promo that he did where he walked off stage a couple of seconds too late.
You're an ideas machine, Benno. I love that. I know a couple of guys, but I mean, maybe we need to see if they're free. I don't know.
Promo, it could be called. No, it'll never work.
It'd never work. The thing is, Benno, we're not obsessed with being the top Bret Hart podcast, because in their mind, Mark men, they think all of this is theirs. I don't shout out. I can't wait to get them on. We will briefly leave the Bret Hart cinematic universe because we need to talk about the new World Wrestling Federation champion. The dead man did it, Benno. Our favorite iteration of the Undertaker's on top of the tree, kind of. I mean, he's not, is he? It's Bret and Austin, but he's the world champion. And the first Raw following WrestleMania finds Paul Bearer, the sniveling little runt, basically saying to the Undertaker, "I'll leave Mankind. Can I come back to you, please?" And the Undertaker is left to think about it. And on the March 31st Raw, the show goes off the air with him being in the ring and Paul Bearer's with him, and Bearer's begging him to take him back. And the Undertaker says, "For all the years, despite what you did to me, I do owe you for getting me to this point." And he hands him the WWF title. There's big boos in the building at the sight of Paul Bearer holding the WWF title. Bearer's got this great, obnoxious, smug face on. He gloats about it. And then he turns around and The Undertaker just drills him straight in the face. It was all a plan from The Undertaker to lure Paul Bearer to the ring and kick his ass. However, there's a plan within the plan. So Paul Bearer bails to the floor. He lures Undertaker round to chase him around the other side of the ring where there's a casket planted ringside. You think that somebody might pop out of that casket, but no, it's Mankind popping from under the ring. He throws a fireball in The Undertaker's face. Mankind and Paul Bearer never had fallen out. It was all a ruse to get The Undertaker down to ringside, to put a fireball in his face, and to basically lay out the challenge one more time. Mankind versus The Undertaker, but this time for the WWF title. It's kind of the opposite of the Bret Austin story in many regards, and indeed the Bret Hart character in terms of how short, sharp a shock it is. But in defense of Undertaker and Mankind, they've sort of earned this one, I think, because all the heavy lifting of 1996 brought them to this point.
It is. And again, it's very human. It's very melodramatic. Like, it's always stuck in my, honestly, like, it's one of, like, phrases you hear in wrestling. Like, and I could never, like, pin down, was it, I can never forgive, but I can forget, or I can never forget, but I can forgive. Like, until I rewatched it, there's, oh, right, it's that way around. It's I can never forget, but I may be able to forgive. Like, I always remember that line from Undertaker. As, like, again, I was 12. I thought it was the most clever thing anybody had ever said. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Like, from both of their character motivations point of views. Like, obviously, it's a ruse on the Undertaker's side, but Paul Bearer's like, and he plays into it because he is the fat man. That's literally his character. But it's like he's seen a massive, lovely slice of cake, nice slice of like Thai tea cake, just to use an example that I might be drooling over tonight. And he's just like, I was Undertaker's with the belt, and it's just like he's going to give it to me. He's actually going to give it to me, and he's just so fucking, he can't wait to munch down that cake and grab that belt and make it its own. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? Like, yeah, he would do that, and yeah, I guess from his point of view, like, it would make sense that Undertaker to come back to him, and it does make sense also that, like, you know, he's like a jealous ex, isn't he? He's literally like, oh, you've won the world title now. Actually, should we get back together? Should we do that? I think we were really good together, weren't we? Let's do that again. Oh, you've got a really good job now, have you? Like, it makes sense there as well. And yeah, of course, Undertaker's, you know, it adds a layer to Undertaker too, that he doesn't immediately fall for it. He's not the stupid babyface who then gets blindsided by Mankind. He sees through it. He attacks Bearer, then Mankind comes, and I think that's an important distinction, which again is more layers than you would have previously got with that character. So yeah, in a very different way, it's a similar kind of melodrama, isn't it? There's a very distinct difference the way these angles are playing out compared to how they would have before.
And like, you cannot fault the long-term storytelling here, because it's kind of the out of nowhere introduction of fire into the storyline. Will take us down a path. I think we all know where we're going. Like, it starts with this. There is there's a retribution fire attack soon to come. There's lots of discussion about fire, and then we'll get to it to recap. But I think you all know what I'm talking about.
In the USWA territory, watching his telly, going, "Oh, there could be an idea there. Maybe we could do something."
Or he's in Mexico. One of the two. Yeah, do I still have to dress as Diesel, or can I do something with that? But yeah, it all starts here in April, and that's our title match set for Revenge of the Taker. They're quite fittingly named in your house as well. This wasn't one of those occasions where it was like Revenge of the Vader, and yet again Vader was like hoofed off the card or something.
Revenge of Leon.
We'll round this podcast out with a preview of that. But before we do that, Benno, we're going to get to our 5-star match review for this edition of Housekeeping. For those that are joining us for the first time, thank you very much. Get yourself back into the archives. We've got everything dating back to the first In Your House in 1995. But we put a call out every single month on these podcasts where, in between the In Your House reviews, we will review something at your request. If you want to leave us a 5-star review on any of the podcast apps, you can do so through Spotify, through Podbean, through all them sort of places. 5 stars. If you can leave anything in the comments box, stick a review request in for me and Benno to talk about something that might feature some of the wrestlers that we talked about in the new generation, but aren't on the In Your House cards. They might feature, in one case, 2 Undertakers when we reviewed the SummerSlam 1994 main event. Or indeed anything from any particular period that you're interested in that isn't necessarily to do with In Your Houses. If you fancy me and Benno having a conversation about it like we're about to now, leave us a 5-star review and we will get to your request, which is what we're going to do for Paulie Shields, who left us a 5-star review through Apple Podcasts. Thank you very much for that, Paulie. Paulie says, fun show. Hello from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'm already jealous, Paulie. You win. Big fan of the show, as I have very fond memories of this era. I also love the vibe of pals chatting wrestling. Thank you very much, Paulie. For the 5-star review, can I suggest the Raw Bowl? I don't remember exactly where it lands in the timeline, but I remember the wrestlers all wearing American football style jerseys and the ring looking like a field. A weird little slice of the new generation. Thanks for considering an awesome show. Thank you, Paulie, for that review. And thank you for requesting the Raw Ball, because Noah, thanks. I'll get my green ring from the Raw Ball.
Well, the thing is, Michael, the wrestlers, they wear American football style jerseys and they're in a ring looking like a field, as Paulie says there. So now, until next time, thanks for the house. There's our conversation done. That's it, isn't it? He's right though, because it sticks out massively, and I appreciate the suggestion here, because it's massively something that sticks out in my memory, because it was different, wasn't it? It was like the ring's different. Like it's I don't understand what this American football tie-in is, but like it stuck out for me as a kid. I remember the main events of the show. It's Diesel and Mabel at the end of this, as well as the Raw Ball match we're going to talk about. But yeah, it's stuck in my memory too. But I'm not sure if Paulie's gone back and watched this too, the reality might hit him like it hits us as well.
Truly a bizarre thing. We joke sometimes that did nobody do an In Your House podcast because nobody wanted to listen to an In Your House podcast? I haven't heard many people recap the 1996 Raw Bowl. So let's give this a go, especially as two Mr. Bean looking asses that don't necessarily understand the American football technology, because I want to start by saying that this was a very, very, very taped Monday Night Raw. Like the commentary was so quick and fast between, like, the interplays between Vince and Jerry Lawler to get in like 100 American football references over the course of this match. They are speaking almost exclusively in football terminology whilst this match is taking place. The match, for those that don't know, I should explain. It's a four-way tag match featuring the tag team champions, the Smoking Guns, Yokozuna and Owen Hart, Razor Ramon and Savio Vega, and Sid and the 1-2-3 Kid. As Paulie and Benno point out, the wrestlers are decked out in American football jerseys. The ring is a field. It's green canvas with the Raw logo across the middle. The Raw branding is Raw Ball with an American football on it. They cut to Michael Hayes as Doc Hendricks in a studio, and Jumbo Jim Ross, the man on the scene that will get the interviewers outside the players' locker rooms. We learn that they're competing for the Lombardi Trophy instead of obviously, being Vince Lombardi. It's Steve Lombardi. And as Benno correctly pointed out, I think the entire idea spawned from that and that alone. And then they worked it backwards. And January 1st starts out with 8 wrestlers. To be fair, what was at the time so unique a match that they actually needed to explain the rules. You didn't have 4 ways. And of all the times for it to debut, it happens here.
Look, we're talking 1997 stuff. I'm saying, I hadn't turned 13 yet, and I'm young and stupid. When I was 11, I was even younger and even stupider. I bought it, though. I bought the advertising. I thought this was a big deal, this Raw coming up. Like, say, the tape nature of it. I was like, hang on, it's a Raw, and I'm going to get to see the hog pen match, and I'm going to get to see Diesel versus Mabel. That was the main event of a pay-per-view 6 months ago. It felt like the biggest thing in the world. Like you say, I didn't understand what American football was, but whatever it was sounded big and it sounded important. So I can't wait to see, what this thing actually is in reality. Yeah,
me neither until I watched it. I want to put over here, because the match, I have to say, the match is a series of exchanges. We'll get to a couple of the details, but like there isn't a great deal of meat on the bones. But as is often the case with the Fed from this period, I was kind of in love with the presentation of this entire episode. So Vince does the narration of like what the Raw Bowl is going to entail as the show starts. And he says there's going to be a band playing, and you see like a kind of college football band with all the brass instruments and the like. Coach Freddie Blassie is giving his tips out. There's cheerleaders. There's all this American football stuff. And then, just to keep you on the hook, as Benno points out, if the hog pen match from In Your House isn't enough, he then just casually drops in, oh, and also we're going to meet our new friends, the Huckster, the Nacho Man, Billionaire Ted, and Scheme Gene. And this is the very first appearance of these characters. Jerry Lawler sounds absolutely shocked, but he says it's such a big night at the Raw Bowl. He takes a king to know a king, and he's even got tickets for Elvis Presley waiting at will call. So everyone's invited for this. So we are going to they've dropped a hook that later on, what the hell is the Huckster and the Nacho Man? What is he talking about? So that's there. You've got to kind of watch this tag match because you want to get to the good shit a bit later on, basically. But the wrestlers come out in their American football jerseys. They've all got different numbers on. Yoko and Owen have got 641, for Yoko's weight and won because that's what Owen believes he's the best in the Hart family, basically the number one brother. Sid's got 0-0 and the kid's got 1-2-3. I'm not sure what the 0-0's a gag about, but Razor's got 4 for the times he was Intercontinental Champion.
Yep.
Savio's got Uno because why would he just have one when you can make fun of a foreign wrestler?
The only one with it in text. Why? Just to make a racist joke. Fair enough. Okay.
The Guns have got 38 and 45. Yeah. Sport, maybe? I don't know.
Oh, not sure. I wonder what the Halls was like 4. Was it for life? Is that the quarterback number? I can't remember. I know central defender.
That's how many IC champions he's had. He's had 4 IC titles. And I think he was the only one at the time as well. I think that was a record when he won his, because he beat Dean Douglas, didn't he? Of course.
Of course, as we all remember. Well, do you know the answer? What's a Jumbo Jim? Why is he called Jumbo Ross? I didn't get that the entire way through the show. So what's that a pun on?
It's just desperate for Vincent McMahon to call him fat, isn't it? That's all that is. Like,
I imagine how much he was hating this entire show, though. You think he hates the toga? Imagine how much he hated American football theme Raw doing all these fucking hokey jokes. It's not a dog bowl. It's not a Super Bowl. Oh, fuck off.
Oh God. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that as Razor Ramon walks to the ring, he's given a gift of gold flowers by Goldust's usher, and he beats the living fuck out of the usher as a thank you. And they cut to Goldust, who's sort of like leering behind the entrance, just looking on basically from a distance, as of course we're building to the Razor Ramon Goldust story that I guess in part had a lot to do with Scott Hall making the big decision, wasn't it?
Yeah, didn't like this. Possibly so. No, and that's obviously where we end up with the Piper match instead.
Mm-hmm. You've got Earl Hebner dressed in a white hat and white trousers to look more like a football referee. It's explained to us that every team's got a timeout, which we'll see is a weird thing. We'll get to that later on. Eliminations can be achieved by pinfall, DQ, count out, or submission. Anybody can tag anybody, but physical contact must take place. What they're doing is they're saying you can't do the Outlaws rule before they've established the Outlaws rule. Partners, if they're tagged in, do have to fight. And we'll get to it. And we get to it pretty quickly. Owen Hart and Bart Gunn start off together. Bart beats him up easily. So Owen tags Billy, and that stirs the shit, and the Guns have to fight. They do a very sort of dignified headlock takeover sequence. They're reversing hip tosses. There's not really any moves exchanged, but they've done enough for physical contact that they both run over and they tag Owen and Yoko. This is a bit of the match I actually quite like. They're obviously seeding Yokozuna's babyface turn here ahead of Vader hitting the ring at the Royal Rumble. And Yokozuna seems quite game by just having a bit of a scrap with Owen. So he gets in the ring, he sort of does his sumo pose. Owen's less keen, as you can imagine. But he does eventually get in the ring and he just eats a shoulder block off Yoko straight away. So he bails and he tags Savio Vega straight away. That's like a really nice interchange, and it would feed into something later on in the match as well.
Yeah, it's proper like bleeds Vincent McMahon getting obsessed with one detail. So if we do a 4-way match and there's 4 teams, what if the partners get in together and just getting obsessed on that one detail and make it the entire first 5 minutes of the match? Because actually, logically, it does make this match, as daft as the Raw Bowl thing is, like a 4-way match like this makes sense that it's elimination. Because the exact problem you often get with matches like this where it's first fall is, why would you ever tag out? Like, you're not going to win if you're on the apron, but if you're not going to lose if you're on the apron, makes way more sense. And then to counter it, you need a rule like that. So it logically makes a lot more sense than what these matches would turn into.
Oh yeah, they'd throw these out in the Attitude Era without giving a shit, wouldn't they? It's just like wrestlers just turn up and fight for the sake of it, as opposed to for the something prestigious like the Lombardi Trophy. We get multiple tag exchanges to give everybody like 20-30 seconds of action. There's some quite brisk exchanges with the likes of the 1-2-3 Kid, Owen Hart, Razor Ramon the same. At this point, we get a bit obsessed for a little while with Jerry Lawler flirting with Miss Raw Ball, which is kind of gross. That's happening at the desk, but there is a payoff coming later on Raw that makes all of this totally worthwhile. In the meantime, there's again more quick tags in the ring. We've got Sid and Kid dominating, and that leads to the first physical exchange between Razor Ramon and the 1-2-3 Kid. The crowd really do come up for this. So this is, of course, not long after the 1-2-3 Kid's heel turn has been revealed, but while Razor is still Intercontinental Champion. So we're a bit of a way off the Crybaby match, which you can go and check out on our review in the archives. Razor signals for the Razor's Edge. He's got the 1-2-3 Kid ready to go. So the 1-2-3 Kid calls for a timeout, which I don't know what it means, because Razor hits the Razor's Edge anyway, and then Ted DiBiase takes the referee as a distraction. So I'm not sure what that timeout bought for the 1-2-3 kid, but nonetheless, the distraction causes the referee to get sort of busy with Ted DiBiase and Psycho Sid to run in, hit Razor from behind, and the kid pins Razor Ramon just like he did back in 1993. This will, of course, all lead to the kid screwing Razor out the IC title, calling Razor a crybaby, and the kid ending up in a giant nappy. That puts us down to two teams of heels against the Smoking Guns, so they dominate for a little bit. Billy eventually gets a pretty good hot tag where he beats up everybody, including Jim Cornette. But the heels take over, and then in quite a cool spot, Owen and Yokozuna have Billy in the corner, and they're setting Billy and Yokozuna up for the bonsai drop. Owen is in like a football pose behind the bonsai drop, doing the 10 hop, hike, like that. But Bart pulls Billy underneath Owen's legs. Owen trips, and then Yoko does the bonsai on Owen's back, flattening him out completely and freeing him up for the Guns to get the pin and basically level it up of one team of faces versus one team of heels. I like that, you know.
Cornette's sell of it's brilliant as well. It works really well, and it plays into like all the story they're telling as well. Like it's good. It's great sleight of hand. It really is. Well done. And the other thing I said for the previous elimination as well is that's what this concept is. You can see what they're going for. It's like we've had the first quarter, and now like this is like halftime, and now we're moving on to like the last bit. I like that. It feels like several different matches. It feels like the wrestlers have structured it that way as well. It's not really one match. It's all of these separate matches happening as the eliminations go on. So yeah, there's been a bit of thought put into that.
You know, it's funny. Like I will say that, like I don't mean to sort of be trivializing these exchanges because it is just tag in, do some moves, tag out, do some moves. But they do sort of put a shift in. They know they're on television, don't they? Like it doesn't feel house show like in any way.
And they know Vince believes in this horrible concept, so it's like fuck it, he likes it. So I guess we got to try. Fine, I'll put some face paint on and I'll wear a stupid colored jersey. Like they're all trying, aren't they? Because they know like it's clearly a big thing.
And from there, we get to the finish where the Smoking Guns pick up the victory. Sid and the Kid obviously were kind of coming to the end of their tenure, as it would turn out in WWE. They'd had their match, they had their win over Razor and Marty Jannetty. You remember the leather jacket friends in December's in your house. So this was like after that. And the Guns pick up the win. It's all to sort of do a trophy celebration in the locker room with the other baby faces later on. And the only sort of observation from the match itself, other than the aesthetics and stuff we've talked about, was just how striking it is and how jarring it is that this was January for Psycho Sid. You can see why he fucked off, can't you? Because he came back and it was a very different world.
But and softball was about to start. That's the other reason as well. But no, it's massively jarring. It's the characters, you know, you're listening off there and seeing them in like this different way. Like again, we didn't long leave it, and like how many we joke about time all the time, but like this could be 10 years before, couldn't it? Like the hulkiness of it and the silliness of it and the accent in it. Obviously, there's a few that we're still covering now, like Sid and like the Guns again, being solo Bart and all of that stuff. It's interesting, but like what a world of difference there is between like the start of 1996 and 1987, not just for Sid, but for everybody.
In the interest of not just sort of giving the short shrift to Paulie with not having a lot to talk about the Raw Bowl, I love that me and you, Benno, as usual, had same brains and were suddenly hooked in to see, well, let's just keep this on for the main event.
Oh, what's the whole show? So I kept it going. I couldn't help myself.
So
it's shit, but it's catnip. Like that's how this podcast started. You know, we're actually doing good stuff now. We've been spoiled, but like that was the whole point, wasn't it? At the start, it was like, fuck it, it's crap, but I love it. Like I don't know why I love it, but I love it. You know.
It's comfort food fed, this, isn't it? You've got like Doc Hendricks in a like an American football style studio doing his Slam Jam report, but it just feels totally different because they're kind of taking the piss out of Madden. You've got Jim Ross as this saying, I couldn't get a word off Diesel other than he's going to kill the king or something like that, and that foreshadows what's going to happen later on. You notice Jeff Hardy as one of the people carrying Mabel's throne. You know, when they would struggle carrying Mabel to the ring because he's so massive, obviously. And yeah, after the advertising and playing of the Hog Pen match pretty much in full, and then the promotion that on next week's Raw, they're going to play the bulk of Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog from In Your House. It's getting desperate in terms of trying to get those numbers. We do get to Diesel versus Mabel. As Mabel's coming to the ring, Jerry Lawler notes that Mabel hasn't been the same since getting stuffed in the casket by The Undertaker, but he's promised that 1996 is going to be his year. Diesel comes down to the ring, jumps in from behind, hits a big boot, 1, 2, 3, and then he jackknifes Mo for good measure. The music plays. Diesel throws his jacket as a referee, and he does his pyro pose, having already won the match. Jerry Lawler's like, I'll get a word with Diesel. Diesel fakes going to have an interview with Jerry Lawler and just steals Miss Rawball and takes her away on his arm. And that's Nash's 1996 off to an absolute fucking flyer.
The coolest man in the world, isn't he? Like, it's funny because obviously we covered like this period and where it's a bit like Austin, isn't it? To be fair, this is an echo of like what we're dealing with now, where I remember as a kid going, "Oh, I'm allowed to cheer for him. Okay, great." Because it was like, "Oh, he's not a full baddie yet," and like the commentators are cheering for him, and look what he just did to Mabel. Like, it kind of worked on me as a kid, and he walks off with the girl as well. All of it. It's like, oh yeah, he's all right in there. That Nash, it's definitely again maybe shaped my my childhood. Like, it's a very distinct memory seeing Nash walk out.
So we cut briefly. Oh, I should mention earlier on as well, the recently returned Brother Love has been doing a motivational speech, but he's just left his eyes closed, so he hasn't noticed that the locker room is empty. That joke doesn't work once, does it?
No. And again, this might as well be 1985. Like, what's Brother Love doing on TV, even in 1996? Come on.
We see very briefly, I'm only mentioning him because he was there, Marty Jannetty, Hakushi, Savio Vega, and Ahmed Johnson celebrating with the smoking guns. They smash the Lombardi trophy over the brawler, and they tip the drink over him in the Super Bowl style. But I can't wrap up this episode without going over to Billionaire Ted's Wrestling War Room. Billionaire Ted is with his suits, one of them being played by Vince Russo. Asking what they need to do to compete with the World Wrestling Federation. And you see the Huckster and the Nacho Man seeing clips of the Razor's Edge, the Pearl River Plunge, and the Jackknife. I mean, they're all power bombs. They could have come up with some different moves, but by the way. And they both basically say, like, Hogan says, "At this age, brother, my feet don't leave the ground." And Savage said, "I didn't do it before. I ain't about to start now." And then the Ted Turner character like, "What are we going to do?" And then the little graphic comes up, the WWF New Generation, new, underlined, and it says, "You can't teach old dogs new tricks. The WWF New Generation, on top of the hill, not over it." And I will just leave this 5-star match review by saying that both Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage were both 43 years old.
Oh, that hurts. That hurts. Yeah. And also, by the way, Randy Savage did a top rope elbow. That was his whole being. Like, what are they on about? Like, and the other thing, I bet you Bischoff watched this and was like, "Yeah, you think that's funny? I'm signing everybody in this video because it's Diesel, it's Razor, it's everyone except Shawn, isn't it?" Yeah, he eventually gets. Like, the only thing about Nose Eyes on this is, like, obviously we covered it, and it's great to be able to say last year, the whole Billionaire Ted stuff. But like, this is the abiding memory I'd forgotten of the Huckster and Nacho Man stuff, where maybe this was just a me thing, and again, dumb kid. But every time I heard the commentators say Huckster and Nacho Man, it was like, did they say Hulkster and Macho Man, and not getting onto the fact that it was something else and it was a joke? I don't know if they were doing that on purpose. And then I do distinctly remember at the end of this Raw Ball going, "Oh, it's supposed to be funny." I think there was parts of me that genuinely thought Hogan and Macho Man were coming back. But again, I probably fell for a Razor and Diesel a year later. So it probably says more about the Crosby education system than anything else.
I remember going around a mate of mine, Sam's house. We talked about this before. He wasn't really into wrestling, but he did have Sky. So ideally, if we could time going round to his house while it just so happened that like Superstars was on, let's see what I could work out. And I remember the graphic flashing up for the geriatric match at WrestleMania 12, and him saying, "Is that like Hogan and Savage at WrestleMania?" I said, "No, it's not. It's the pretend ones." What do you want? Like, I don't know what. I'm going to try and explain that as a kid. I'm going to try to, no, because they're old. They're old. They're shit. Like, Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan are shit now. Why? I don't know, but the Fed have told me they're shit now, so I don't watch any of that shit.
It was like me and again, we talked about on Grapple last month, watching ECW and telling me mates, "Oh, it's way better than WCW. It's so good." And then ECW finally getting on Bravo over here, and Elvis Wesley walks out. I was like, no, it is good. And all my mates just like credibility with my friend group just evaporating immediately in that second. So same life we both lived it.
No, fun, very fun to go back and just have this little bite-sized snapshot of early 1996. And as you pointed out, we're just over a year in and change from this Raw Ball, and the world has changed 15 times over, hasn't it? It's been very fun to document that change as we've gone along.
Crazy.
So Thank you, Paulie, for that 5-star match review. And again, just to remind you, if you want your match choice or anything that you fancy us going back and taking a look at for a future edition of Housekeeping, leave us a 5-star review, and we will get to it on a future edition of the show. And I guess before we get out of it, Benno, shall we take a quick look at what's on deck for Revenge of the Taker in Your House 14? It feels increasingly like I'm starting to feel quite sad that the subtitles are taking such prominence, and the numbers in the house and all the things we've come to love are kind of taking a bit of a back seat. But it's been an eventful couple of months in the World Wrestling Federation, which is probably why some of these matches sound as big as they do. We've already talked about The Undertaker defending the WWF title against Mankind. Bret Hart was initially scheduled to go up against Psycho Sid following on from WrestleMania, but Sid did one of his disappearing acts, got a bit injured. It depends what you believe at the time. Luckily enough, they had a replacement in Stone Cold Steve Austin. So we'll be seeing those two go back to war yet again. Never mind. We've got one of our favorites versus one of our future favorites, as Savio Vega takes on Rocky Maivia, with only one of those men being a member of the Nation of Domination at the time. Remember that cunt, the honky tonk man? Well, he's kicking about, and we're going to see him in a sort of a managerial capacity as we see his new charge, is all I'll say, take on the real Double J, Jesse James. I'll leave that unspoiled just in case anybody doesn't remember or doesn't know who the honky tonk man is.
We've got a lot of Disco Inferno fans, so, I'm sure they're very excited.
That's it. You've all read the magazines. You've all read Raw magazine. You've done the silhouette maths. You know who it is. So we'll see who turns up to face the Road Dogg at Revenge of the Taker. And in something that's kind of a dream match and definitely what we've been asking for, Benno, Bulldog and Owen have got some baby faces. And it's not just any baby faces. It's the return of the Legion of Doom. Hawk and Animal are back in the WWF, and they're getting a tag title shot against Bulldog and Owen straight away. That's also happening at Revenge of the Taker. Fair enough.
Yeah. Luckily they've got some shoulder pads after Ahmed stole them at WrestleMania 13, but maybe we can get into that lore when we get there. But no. I honestly, until we talked about it today, and I was getting ready for obviously doing the homework between now and the show, I'd forgotten there was an Austin and Bret match on this. I can't think. Have I actually seen it? Is a genuine question I've got for myself. I'm not 100% whether I am. A couple of the other matches on the undercard do feel more familiar, like Undertaker and Mankind again, and again the Jesse James versus Mystery Man stuff. I do distinctly remember seeing, but rest of it feels new for me. So this might be one where it's a first time view for me, which is a rare thing once we get into obviously 97 and 98. So yeah, excited for it.
Yeah, I can't wait. And again, we're counting down the days now, but still one of the nice, tight 2-hour in your houses before they get sprawling and out of control. We're just clinging on to those old school episodes before we go head first into an ever-changing landscape in the second half of 1997, and indeed the second season of Benno and Hamflett in your house.
I was going to say sprawling and out of control, mate. We've only gone out 1 hour, 41 minutes and 37 seconds. I don't know what you're talking about. It's the good stuff, folks. It's absolutely, it's massively justifiable at this point. Get ready for 3-hour Benno and Hamflett Housekeeping's coming next year. But yeah, there we go. That's everything coming up. Got that to look forward to on the next major review. But yeah, before we get out of here, I'm sure you've got a few, Michael. Any plugs to throw out there of what's been going on over in What Culture Land?
I do, yeah. We've got our usual slate of weekly Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW previews and reviews, but also relatively recently, along with the endless stream of pay-per-view reviews, WWE were in Australia, and we were given the treat of being able to actually watch WWE at a normal time of day. So we were able to do a couple of live streams for both Raw and SmackDown. They're still available for you to go and watch, so you can get some live thoughts along with the usual bobbins and the other stuff we get up to on those things. There's also going to be a lot of coverage headed into Survivor Series War Games and AEW Full Gear. The content never ever sleeps, so we don't either. And you can find all that at whatculture.com on the website, or What Culture Wrestling podcast YouTube channels. It's all available. If you search my name or you search What Culture, you'll find all that good stuff. And to sort of segue into yours, while you were away, the Feds decided to play. I was able to get on with Matty. It's still available behind the Grapple Patreon paywall. We've looked back at some angles, some of the scariest Fed from the early 90s, those baddies that kept you up at night with some of the nastiest things that were ever committed to television. The World Wrestling Federation kind of became a bit of a dark place in the early 90s. So they decided to put the call out. They sent for the Feds, and me and Matty turned up, and we cleaned that world right up nicely. That's available on Grapple as well.
Superb stuff. Yeah, definitely check that out. And yeah, everything else we had there going on over in Grapple in October. Always blessed to have Michael on our shows. Obviously, yeah, we're into November, and obviously, yeah, we got loads of fun shows covering the same stuff, say Blood and Guts and Full Gear and all that stuff. But over on the Patreon, one that I think is definitely worth the hard sell to Benno and Hamflett listeners. We're doing you love this idea when we pitched it to you, Michael. We're calling it "Kid" in quotation marks. The Grapple 6 tape. Play on mixtape there. You see what we did there? We're going through a match. There's 2 Fed matches in there, to be fair. We had to give them 2. But other than that, a match from each incarnation of Sean Maltman. You know, looking at Lightning Kid, looking at 1-2-3 Kid, looking at 6, looking at X-Pac, and looking at his later days on the Indies and TNA as well as his early days on the Indies before it all got started too. So yeah, I think that would play close to a lot of people's hearts who listen to this stuff. So yeah, that's coming up for November over on Grapple as well. And yeah, I think definitely people would enjoy that one.
Oh, mate, honestly, I think like this is long overdue, and obviously you can then discuss why it was reasonable that fans should be calling for his head and ask him to retire at 28 years old. Like now the evidence is out there.
Never mind 30 something. He's in his 20s. He gets to 30 and I say, yeah, he's done here. Like we don't need him anymore. X-Pac becomes a thing, and it's just literally like he could have had another career. He could have probably still be going now. You know, he could probably still go if he really wanted to. But yeah, an unsung hero, and obviously we had a great time talking about him in 95 and 96. So great to circle back to that. So yeah, to check that out as well as all our novel stuff. Just search Grapple No E everywhere podcasts are sold.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Much like 1997. So we will get out of here now. We will see you next month for Revenge of the Taker. And until next time, thank you for the house.
Yeah, nice.